After falling into the water with my nemesis, Julia, we ended up 10 years in the future. Staring at the marriage certificate with a familiar yet irritating face, Michael and I just stayed silent. Dad and Mom, why don't you believe me? Are you pretending to argue just to avoid taking me to the amusement park? A little girl said with her hands on her hips, looking all puffed up. Michael suddenly spoke up, I believe it now. You looked the same when you were mad as a kid. I had to agree. The little girl's eyes and expressions were just like Michael's. Michael and I exchanged glances and spoke simultaneously. I knew you had a crush on me. When I first opened my eyes, I saw a pair of big, bright black eyes blinking at me. Ah. Whose kid are you? The little girl squinted. Oh, come on, pretend you don't know me. Mom used that trick last week when she didn't want to play blocks with me. What is this all about? I'm Julia, and I've lived 22 years without even holding a guy's hand, so where did such a big kid come from? In a panic, moving sideways, I accidentally pressed something soft beneath me. Ouch! A scream. There's someone under the quilt? I kicked, but they didn't budge. The person curled up in pain, yanked the quilt, and screamed, Julia, are you trying to murder me? I stared in disbelief at the face popping out from under the covers. Michael? Michael, my arch nemesis. While others have sweet childhood romances, we didn't get along since diaper days. I often felt insecure about his abilities compared to mine. Though our story ended with a mixed martial arts fight, I started finding him more and more unbearable. When I finally worked up the nerve to ask out my crush for a stroll during college graduation, just as I reached out to hold his hand, a basketball hit us dead on. I ended up with a broken arm for 3 months. Who plays basketball in the woods? Pure jealousy, that's what. This guy just couldn't stand seeing me happy. So when I spotted him with a girl by the lake, I lunged to push him into the water. But he dodged, I fell in. Darn it, he knows how to swim, but I don't. Bubbles rose as my consciousness faded. In a daze, I thought I saw Michael swimming over, grabbing my wrist. Then, everything went black. One moment, I'm moved remembering the past. The next, I'm kicking like there's no tomorrow. What are you doing in my bed? Michael groaned, I should ask you. I saved you, and this is how you repay me, by ruining my reputation. Reputation my foot. I slapped the back of his head. Hey. Can you guys argue later? Get up already. You promised to take me on the roller coaster today. The little girl was completely unfazed, swinging her bunny backpack expectantly. What did you call me? Mom. Trembling, I pointed at Michael, and him? She tilted her head, pouting, Dad, did you upset Mom again? With a dry chuckle channeling my inner grumpy old man, impossible, this is just impossible. The little girl skipped over to a cabinet, pulling out a bright red book. Staring at the marriage certificate, a familiar but annoying face stared back, and both Michael and I were silent. In a daze, I mumbled, did we travel through time? We have a child? I must still be dreaming. Michael flicked my forehead, told you to stop reading too many web novels. This must be my mom's doing. He searched the room, found no cameras, nor any audience watching our play. We both felt dazed. We kept flipping the marriage certificate, muttering, how can this be possible? And the date. I poked Michael, so, when was your lakeside date with that girl? That was my cousin visiting from abroad, Michael retorted, shooting me a side eye. Who knew some fool would jump straight into the lake? I pinched his waist hard, stay focused. Ouch. June 1st. Michael winced with teary eyes and muttered, should have never asked what girls like. I froze. By this calculation, the marriage certificate dated just 9 days after we fell in. June 10th, my birthday. What do you mean? Asked the little girl, arms akimbo. Michael suddenly spoke, I believe it now. You looked just the same when you were little and angry. Nonsense, I'm too gentle to get angry. Michael, do you hear yourself? Honestly, I believed it too. The little girl's brows and eyes were just like Michael's. Michael and I caught each other's gaze and blurted out, "I knew you had a secret crush on me." Seriously. Seriously. I struggled to understand why on earth I'd agree to marry you. Did you beg, with tears flowing, pleading like some ancient ritual? Michael laughed. Am I crazy? Marrying such a firecracker, it'd scare me awake from a nightmare. What happened? You saved my life, remember that? Darn, he did save my life. Seeing that we traveled through time, the oldest probably isn't alive anyway. But if I had a shred of consciousness left, why would I end up with him? Does saving your life still count? Such a dilemma. Both lost in thought, each with their own schemes. After a short-lived peace, we sighed in unison looking at the little girl. Oh well, there's a kid now. Let's just make do, shall we? Can't exactly divorce, can we? I guess not. But for now. Michael scratched his head. I've never watched a kid before. Does looking after you count? Scram. I'm your dad. Michael shot back, I'm your uncle. I'm your ancestor. Wah wah. Whose alarm is that? Oh, turns out it's the kid crying. Awkwardly, we both rubbed our noses and finally quieted down. At the amusement park, in front of the pirate ship. Someone who's dizzy just from elevators has never ridden this thing in 2 lifetimes. Sweetie, this is too dangerous. How about we play on that instead? I pointed to the carousel nearby, but no, too dizzy for that too. Paused a bit and moved to the balloon shooting game. Trust me, Mommy's eyes are like a ruler. I confidently patted my chest. My daughter tilted her head, counted on her fingers, and said, instead of this, I can ride the roller coaster or the drop tower. Child, are you a 9-year-old superhero? Michael squatted to hug our daughter and smugly said, Sweetie, Mommy's afraid of heights. Come on, Daddy will go with you. Yikes, there goes my short temper. Who's afraid? Michael raised a brow. I took a deep breath. Instead of forcing myself, better cut myself some slack. Clenching my teeth into a grin, yep, that's me, have fun guys. As soon as they got on the pirate ship, I bolted to the snack stand, viciously devouring an ice cream under the umbrella while plotting my future divorce with Michael and a life of freedom. Linda. I turned my creamy-faced head, and the half-eaten ice cream plopped to the ground. Alexander? Alexander, my college crush. Back then, Michael broke my leg while I was on a date in the woods with Alexander. I later asked Michael why he hit me and not Alexander. Michael justly said, being tricked by you into the woods was punishment enough for him. Poor thing. Darn it, Michael, you jerk. But truth is, I did make up some excuse to trick Alexander into going with me, and he actually believed my nonsense. Rare guilt washed over me, and I never dared to contact him after, truly feeling guilty. Frantically, I searched for tissues in my bag but discovered my hands covered in melted cream. A wet wipe appeared in front of me. Alexander's gentle laugh was just as I remembered, only now sprinkled with charming maturity. Blushing, I took it, thanks, long time no see. Destiny. It has to be destiny. All these years later, reuniting with your college sweetheart, how romantic. A fateful crossroad, I have to treasure this moment. This time I'll seize the opportunity and won't let Michael mess it up. But getting married this year might be tight, seeing I have to get divorced first. Dad? A young boy next to the ice cream freezer with a newly chosen treat clutched Alexander's hand and looked at me anxiously. My dreams of a beautiful life shattered to bits. Right, 10 years. Of course, he's married with kids now. Stunned, I didn't know how to react. Alexander gently tapped the boy's nose. Jason, call her Auntie. The sweet boy obediently murmured, Hi, Auntie. Definitely not fine. Waking up to find your old crush has a kid calling you Auntie, who wouldn't feel down? Mama, how come you're here? Daddy and I were looking everywhere for you. My daughter rushed over, hugged my waist, and knocked me off balance. Oh right, I have a kid too. Even worse. Michael's face soured upon recognizing Alexander, giving a slight nod as a greeting. This your daughter? Alexander asked. She's beautiful. What's her name? Both Michael and I exchanged glances, staring at our daughter. Oops, it seems like we never asked her name. I'm Clara, and I'm 9, my daughter confidently spun her big eyes to the boy. And you? The boy looked up at Alexander, received an encouraging smile, and shyly said, Jason, 6. Who knows what came to Michael's mind, but his face got even darker. Then I'm the big sister. I'll look after you. My daughter joyfully leapt, ready to take Jason's hand, but Michael quickly stopped her. Jason's heart isn't too strong, so they couldn't join for the rides. Before we left, I sneaked a glance back. Alexander was chatting with Jason, a small smile on his lips. But the amusement park was loud, only the wind caught their conversation. Dad, who's that lady? Her. She was someone Dad really liked long ago. The sweltering weather ended with a watermelon feast at home. Feeling bummed, I heard Michael's mocking voice, still thinking about Alexander? Too bad, he's already moving on with his kid. I peeked at my daughter, who was happily munching, watermelon juice all over her face. I couldn't decide if it's funny or touching. Not only did mine already grow up, but she's making her own mess. Huh, someone like you who's never had a first love wouldn't understand. Michael protested, who are you calling out? I didn't believe him one bit. I've known your every secret since you were a kid. Iron trees blooming, I'd know it before you. Michael choked on words, muttering over watermelon, because you're a fool. Who's the fool? You're the fool. You, Julia. As we bickered back and forth, we didn't notice our daughter. By the time we remembered, her pile of watermelon rinds was already growing tall. As kids, sneaking treats was a thrill but strictly frowned upon. I'd finish my ice cream and snatch Michael's too, only to end up crying with a stomach ache at night. Michael, not to be outdone, would eat 2 in front of me when I was sick and too weak to fight, and unsurprisingly, he'd be the second one sobbing beside me overnight. I only know kids shouldn't eat too much cold stuff, but how much is too much? I nervously swallowed. Is it okay for her to eat this much? Michael counted the watermelon rinds and hesitated. I don't think it's okay. We both were uneasy. I wanted to get some hot water, but Michael stopped me. Are you crazy? She ate so much cold watermelon. Switching between hot and cold will definitely give her diarrhea. I don't know, so what do we do? Right, let's search online. I pulled out my phone, only to be startled by a popping news headline, beware. 5-year-old girl rushed to ER after eating ice-cold watermelon. And ate too much watermelon and ended up in the ICU. I grabbed Michael's arm, almost crying. What do we do, Michael? She's so young. What if something happens to her? Michael frowned, picked up our daughter, and searched for a heating pad to warm her belly. This must be the new place we moved to after getting married. We're not familiar with it yet. Search for nearby hospitals or clinics, the closer the better. If anything happens tonight, we'll go immediately. We were in chaos while our daughter lay quietly on the bed as calm as can be. Later that night, she ran a fever, vomited, and cried with pursed lips in discomfort. Michael and I stayed by her side without sleeping. As soon as we sensed something was wrong, we rushed her to the hospital. After the doctor checked her, he frowned, acute gastroenteritis. How are you two taking care of a child? Don't you know basic stuff? Michael and I just stood there, not daring to speak. Take this prescription, get her meds, and wipe her with warm water at home, got it? No need for hospitalization? No emergency care? The doctor gave us a stern look. What kind of parents wish for anything other than their children to be well? It's not that serious. The fever and vomiting aren't just from the cold watermelon. Overeating is also a big factor. Let her have easy-to-digest food like noodles and rest well for a few days. Michael and I exchanged a look, simultaneously thinking of the half plate of braised pork our daughter ate at lunch. We had thought then that it was good for her to eat a lot, being active and growing, never guessing this outcome. By the time we got home, it was nearly midnight. After wiping her down and putting her to sleep, Michael and I collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Raising a kid is hard. Why did we even think of having a baby in the first place? I weakly replied, "Why ask me? It's definitely your fault." Michael suddenly leaned in so close. I could practically count his eyelashes. "Why don't you check if I actually have a problem?" Michael's breath fell on my face, and though he was so familiar, I strangely felt flustered. His face got nearer, almost touching my nose. "Julia, stay calm. You have to stay calm," I thought quickly. Something's not right. Wait, he's doing this on purpose to catch me off guard. My mind snapped back, and I just locked his throat. "Humph, trying to ambush me, huh?" Michael didn't curse back as usual. Instead, he mumbled with his head down, "If it were Alexander, would you dodge?" I let go, frowning. "What nonsense are you talking about? You've been acting off since we came back from the amusement park." "Acting off?" "Your eyes were glued to Alexander." "So what if they were? How's that any of your business?" Michael sounded a bit wronged, "But you're my legal wife now." I lost my cool and snapped, "So what? Tomorrow morning at the Civil Affairs Bureau, whoever doesn't show up is a little dog." Michael laughed angrily. "Julia, do you really want a divorce that badly?" The frustration welled up. I almost couldn't stop myself from yelling at him. What else am I supposed to do? I woke up with a husband and a kid. And how's that fair to me? I was young. I have so many things I love I haven't done, so many dreams unrealized. Now you're telling me everything's gone because I have to be responsible for a family, for a child? Who's gonna be responsible for me? Michael never understood. Alexander never truly upset me as much as the feeling of being trapped, powerless to do anything about it. The air was silent until a small hand tugged at my clothes. I looked down. Our daughter's eyes were red, holding back tears. Clara snuck out, standing barefoot on the cold floor. "Dad and Mom, please stop fighting. Clara will be good from now on and won't get sick again." She thought we were fighting because of her. My heart ached like it had been pierced by a needle. Sure, we're not thrilled to be dropped into this world, but Clara, what's her fault in this? She did nothing wrong. Why should she bear our crappy moods? Whether we like it or not, we're parents now. Logic slowly returned. I picked her up and gently comforted. Mom and Dad were just playing around, not fighting. Clara, getting sick isn't something you should feel guilty about. It's Mom's fault for not taking better care of you. I'm sorry. Michael came over, a little awkward. It's my first time being a dad, too, so I lack experience. I glared at him. Michael quickly shifted his approach. Dad's sorry, too. Finally getting Clara to sleep, Michael and I let out a breath simultaneously. Less than 24 hours having crossed over, and it feels like we fought several battles. In a secretly held meeting in the study, we reached an amicable agreement. Stop the internal conflict and find any way to get back to our original world. 6 months flew by. After the 10th time almost drowning in the bathtub and ending up in the hospital, I bawled in the doctor's office while hugging Michael. Initial diagnosis is postpartum depression. Many women feel down or irritable after childbirth, struggling with identity changes, sometimes even disliking or forgetting their child. What if both parents forget? I asked, hopeful, conveniently having lost memory from marriage to childbirth. The doctor's silence was deafening. He subtly suggested the best psychiatric hospital in town. I gave up. For a moment, I seriously questioned whether I was losing it, imagining all this. But seeing Michael calmed me down. Even if I was crazy, at least I wasn't alone. Lately, he seemed to be getting worse too. Those pained looks were hard to explain otherwise. Hey, it's just a plant. Why are you hurting over it? I can get you 10 more tomorrow. Michael shot me a look, grabbed my foot to stop me from moving, and rubbed some ointment on it with a firm hand. Ouch! Tears almost came to my eyes. Michael snorted, "It hurts, doesn't it? You know you have night blindness and still go to the bathroom in the dark. Serves you right." I protested. Clara insisted on sleeping with me last night. I didn't want to wake her with the light. Anyway, why did you put a plant there? Michael mumbled, "You're the one who can't sleep without recognizing the bed. You're a handful." My face flushed. I turned away, pretending I didn't hear. For Clara's sake, Michael and I have been sharing a room for 6 months. Don't get me wrong, he sleeps on the floor. I still couldn't sleep well. Out of nowhere, Michael got a pot of lavender. What on earth was this guy planning? First, soft steps. I shook my foot. I probably won't be moving for a few days. Remember Clara's parent-teacher conference the day after tomorrow. You go, okay? Sure, no problem. Turns out, I got a call from the school that day. Hello, is this Clara's mom? I was puzzled. Yes, what's up? One of the students got sick suddenly at school. Michael took him to the hospital. Can you pick up Clara? And Clara? Is she okay? Forgetting my swollen foot, I hobbled out the door. After settling Clara down, I rushed to the hospital. Michael was there, sitting with his head down outside the ER. I went over and took his hand. Michael's hand was cold and shaking. He looked at me with panic in his eyes. You're here? I looked right into his eyes. Michael, you did well. You did more than enough. Michael spoke with a hint of fear. Tense, I watched him collapse in front of me. If anything happened to Jason, he's just a kid. Nothing's gonna happen. I shook my head firmly. Don't worry, Jason will be fine. When Alexander arrived, Jason was already out of danger. Michael was helping with the paperwork. Julia, I don't know how to thank you guys. The doctor said if it weren't for Michael's first aid, Jason might not have made it. I waved it off. Don't mention it. The kid's alright, that's what matters. Alexander was home from a business trip, looking worn out and haggard. I'd never seen him like that. It's my fault. This was Jason's first parent-teacher meeting since he started school, and he was so excited to invite me. But I said I was busy with work and had the nanny go instead. Alexander shut his eyes in regret. I hesitated. What about his mom? She passed when Jason was 3. Heart condition. I closed my mouth tight. The doctor said Jason's condition isn't as serious as his mom's. They'll operate when he's older. I should have taken better care of him. As we left the hospital, Michael went ahead to get the car. Alexander watched him and smiled softly. I was surprised when you married Michael out of the blue, but now I see you made the right choice. I was shocked, pointing at myself. Me? I was the one who suddenly wanted to marry him? I initiated it? Alexander looked confused. It was sudden. As for who proposed, didn't Michael pop the question? He's been into you for years. I was questioning my ears. Alexander said Michael even came to him, declaring he'd loved me since we were kids. Soon after, Michael and I registered our marriage, and it was never brought up again. I went home in a daze, mind blown. This guy secretly liked me. Post-recovery, Jason returned to school, with Clara playing the role of little adult, overseeing his meds and water intake. Alexander switched jobs and no longer travels as much. One night, after putting my daughter to bed, I walked in to find Michael setting up his spot on the floor. Julia. What you need? I asked. Michael, facing away, said gruffly, Alexander's been widowed for years. I know. If you want to be with him, I won't interfere. I rolled my eyes. Stop blabbering. Go to sleep. You said you wanted a divorce. Michael paused, jealousy seeping through. I'll admit Alexander's a bit more gentle, just a bit, though. He might be more attentive, but I've grown up with you. Can't you see how I feel? His words ticked me off, and I sat up and kicked him. Your idea of showing how you feel was breaking my arm? Michael looked embarrassed, scratching his head. You know, I expected the ball to pass between you two without a hitch. But then, well, my hand slipped. Pissed off, I kicked him again. Michael pursed his lips, staying silent. I breathed out, giving him a side eye. All right, stop with the jealousy. When did I ever say I wanted a divorce? I struggled when I first came here, but as time went on. Well, never mind. I sighed. With so many people in the world, running into him was probably fate. This bickering but happy, ordinary life didn't seem so bad after all. Michael suddenly looked up. Really? Yeah. So, that means you're my wife now, and no takebacks. Say it, you're a fibber if you do. Kinda wanna return him. Is it too late to regret this? Say it. Lies are for puppies. Michael rarely gets shy, but he looked at me hesitantly. Can I sleep in the bed? The bedroom floor is too hard. After sleeping there for months, my neck, back, everything aches. I crossed my arms and looked down at him. Over the years, doesn't this dog think I know what he's plotting? Michael crumbled under my stare and reluctantly curled up on the floor with his blanket. I found it amusing, leaned over, and planted a kiss on his cheek. Michael's eyes lit up. He flipped over and scooped me up. Suddenly being lifted, I wrapped my arms around his neck and gasped, "What are you doing?" Just doing what married folks do. The seasons go by, and it's summer again. Michael and I have graduated from the newbie stage of marriage. We're getting the hang of things and are pretty good at taking care of the kid now. Sweetie, tomorrow is Children's Day. How about Mommy and Daddy take you out for some fun? Our daughter's eyes sparkled, and she cheered, "Yay! I want to go to the amusement park. Can we bring Jason too? We promised to play together last time." Of course, but what if Jason isn't feeling well and can't go on the roller coaster with you? She tilted her head in thought. That's okay. I can teach him how to build a castle. That's my girl. I laughed and ruffled her hair. But you have to look after your little brother, okay? Got it. She nodded earnestly. Before bed, she reminded us, Mom and Dad, don't sleep in tomorrow. All right, we promise. After she fell asleep, I motioned Michael, who sneakily crept in to place her gift by the bed. She'd see it first thing in the morning. I noticed a big heart circled on the calendar next to the bed. June 10th, my birthday. Warmth filled my heart. Since we promised to take her out, Michael and I went to bed early. Half asleep, I felt someone pulling at my eyelids. Clara, quit messing around. Let Mom sleep a bit more. The small hand paused, then started tugging on the other eye. Wait, if it's not Clara, then. I snapped my eyes open, yelling, Michael. Are you trying to get yourself killed? I didn't see Michael, just the hospital ceiling. The doctor beside the bed was startled but relieved. The patient's awake. Seems like they're okay. I sat up in confusion, and my parents rushed over, crying and laughing. Thank goodness you're finally awake. I was dazed. Did I hop to some parallel universe again? Then what about Clara? Hold on, I'm alive? Where's Michael? He's in the next room, Mom explained. He saved you. Otherwise. I yanked out the 4 and dashed out, only to bump into Michael coming to find me. I grabbed his arm, urgently asking, do you remember? It felt like we got married and had a daughter. Wasn't it a dream? My mind was a mess, I couldn't piece it all together. Dismayed, I muttered, so it was a dream. Michael took my hand, it wasn't just a feeling. Clara is definitely ours. I looked up in surprise, joy replacing all the sadness. You remember? You do, right? Michael nodded firmly, then he glanced at something behind me. The hospital clock clearly read 2 p.m., June 10th. We'd been in a coma for 9 days. Wait, at this time. Michael and I exchanged a glance and bolted out of the room. Behind us, our parents called out, "Hey, where are you going?" "The doctor said you need to be under observation. To get a marriage license. Get married." In the grand scheme, everything had been perfectly arranged.